Hey guys, hi, it's Candy and welcome back to my channel. So, you may have watched my video back from mid-December. It was a Candy's Corner episode and it was titled My First Job and My College Story. And I told you guys I wanted to follow up, or I asked you guys if you wanted me to follow up and give you part 2 of kind of like my career, like kind of where things went from when I ended up not finishing my college degree and ended up just working full-time, and kind of then how I progressed and ended up where I am today. So to sort of pick up from where we left off, I talked about how I ended up not finishing getting my nursing degree, and after I dropped out of college, basically after 3.5 years, I went ahead, and since I was already working within a hospital system, they had a job that was posted for a secretary for a internal medicine physician practice. So it was a 4-physician practice, and I applied for the job and I ended up getting it. And now that you think about it, I have to say I never went on a job interview that I didn't get the job. That is like super cool. I just realized that right now. Okay, so I'll continue with the story, but I was so nervous though for that interview. I remember that because it was kind of like my first like real like adult job, you know. And like I said, it was working for 4 internal medicine doctors, and I met so many great people working for that practice. I basically answered the phone, and back then medical records were not in the computer. We had charts, some that were this big, some that were this big. Everything got handwritten out. We did have the computer system to schedule appointments and for their billing, like all of the billing systems. Even though I didn't finish nursing school, everything that I learned in college did help me with my job. And I can remember I got $8 an hour, which this would have been back in like 93 or 94, 90, no, it would have been 93. Minimum wage was like 4 something back then. My first job, I made $4.25 an hour when I was 16 years old. If you want to hear more about that, you'll have to go watch the first video. But yeah, so it was really kind of a big deal. It was a pretty decent paying job for back then. This is making me feel so old. Yeah, I ended up working that specific job for 9 months, and then there was an opening in the billing department for the internal medicine practice. And I remember the office manager, she was super nice. She was kind of like around like my, you know, she could have been my mom. And so I kind of had to like interview with her again for the medical billing position. And I ended up working with, let's see, there were 2 full-time and I think 1 part-time other medical billers, and they were all much older than me as well. And I ended up working for that internal medicine practice for probably 2 or 3 years maybe, in the medical billing department, because I actually worked there. Andrew's dad and I got married in 1994, and I was working there when we got married. And I was also working there when Andrew was born because they had a baby shower for me. So I worked there in 95. Trying to do the math on all of this. Then I kind of got the mindset, I was working full time. My mom and my grandma babysat Andrew for me, so he didn't have to go to a daycare. So that was super, super convenient for sure. Like, I know not everyone is lucky enough to have that kind of scenario when they have a new baby. But you know, when Andrew was 1, that was when his dad and I went through our divorce, which that's another whole. If you search Our Family Nest Divorce, there's some videos on my daily vlog channel where we've told the story and talked about all of that, if you're interested in hearing more about that background. But then I kind of became more career-oriented mindset, and I wanted to just like keep working my way up. Like, my ex and I, we had bought a house, and I kept the house in our divorce, so I needed to like make more money. If I could go to a different job and make some more money being a single mom. I mean, I got child support, but you know, I wanted to better myself, and I also wanted to continue to kind of like work up the ladder. So, and then from there, actually, I worked for a cardiology practice, and it was a big practice of like, I believe it was like 6 or 7 cardiologists. And I remember working at that practice for probably 2 years. And I loved that job. I loved the people I worked with, and I pretty much only left there because I wanted to work at an office where I had like just more, I don't know, I guess you could say independence and more kind of like in charge of things and not working in a group. Like I said, it makes me sound like I'm not like a good worker, like I can't work with other people. I just enjoyed working more on my own. And then I seen an ad in the paper. This is also when jobs were advertised in the newspaper. I seen an ad in the paper for, it was actually titled Medical Billing Manager for an allergy practice. And this was for a allergy practice of 3 doctors. And I had my own office. It was like a third of the size of this room. It was super teeny tiny, but I didn't care because I worked completely by myself. I was in charge of all the billing. So I worked that job for quite a while, but I remember asking for a pay raise because I had worked there long enough where I could like run reports and stuff, and I could show where they have this thing that's called like accounts receivable, and I kept making the practice more money, collecting more money, getting more money into the office than like how things were going before I worked there. And so I would say, hey, can I get a bonus? Can I get a raise? Some of the most nerve-wracking moments of my life. Don't ever be afraid to like ask for a raise. I remember almost making myself sick over just asking for like a 50-cent an hour raise, you know? And it's crazy, but that's just how I was back then. But what's the worst they can do is say no, which is exactly what they told me. I remember the first year they gave me a pretty good raise, like $1 an hour raise. And then the second year when I asked for a raise, they told me no. So I was like, all right, I'm out of there. So I ended up leaving there, and that was then my last kind of like official job that I went to. I worked for a family physician, and he was a physician who had just like, he was working for the hospital, but the hospital didn't renew his contract, so he was starting like his own private medical practice, and I was the office manager. So I went from being in charge of billing to then now I was like in charge of the whole office. But he didn't do his medical billing in the office. He hired a company to do that. So this managerial position was more like being in charge of the front office, being in charge of the medical assistants, the secretary, kind of just the office as a whole. And I actually worked that job when Ken and I got married, because I remember the physician and his wife came to our wedding. And I really liked the job. Everything about the job was great. However, I was on salary, and I would work so much overtime. There were so many days that I would work more than 8 hours. It was crazy. And then I can remember Ken and I got married October 2nd of 1999, and I had got pregnant on my honeymoon. I found out a couple of weeks, I think it was like, I don't know, the day or two before Halloween, I found out I was pregnant, and I was like super emotional. And I remember telling the physician that I worked for that I was gonna be late that morning because Andrew, he was in preschool at the time, and he had his like Halloween preschool parade, and I had told him that I was gonna be like an hour or so late. Well, he must have forgot, because he came into the office all like ranting and raving to the nurses and everything, like, where's Candi? Why is she not here? I need her, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, you know, don't you remember? She told you she was gonna be late. And he was just all upset and irritated. So when I walked in, one of the nurses right away was like, doctor's so mad at you. You weren't here, blah, blah, blah. Better watch out, better be prepared or something. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, and there were other things that happened, but I don't want to turn this video into this whole like, all the drama at Candi's last official job. But I ended up calling Ken. I was like crying on the phone saying, I can't deal with this anymore. He's just being a jerk. And he's like, just quit. So I literally put my key on the table, wrote a note. It didn't say like I quit. I think it just said something like, I'm sorry, but I cannot work under these conditions anymore. And like I said, there's way more to the story, but I don't want to get too personal or anything like that. Just crazy stuff that went on that I was like, I just don't want to work this job. And the plan anyways always was that once Ken and I started having kids, that I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. I was lucky enough to be able to do that. He had a full-time job at a engineering firm. He was a sales manager and made enough money that I was able to stay home. So I ended up quitting that job, never looked back. And yeah, that was like my whole career. Those were all my jobs. So I was a stay-at-home mom for many, many years, and I did fun things like read books and have a mom blog. That's where the name Our Family Nest comes from, as I used to have a blog where I would write and post pictures when I was pregnant with the kids and tell stories, and I made friendships online and all that good stuff. So I guess you could say that's when I first officially became like addicted to being on the computer. And this was way, way before YouTube was even around. So then Blake was born, Chase was born, Carly was born, and in 2007 is when Ken quit his full-time job. I know this really doesn't have to do with my career, but it does, you'll see why. So he quit his full-time job. At the time, we had no debt except our house, and I think we had one car payment, and we just pretty much risked everything and started our own physician recruiting company. And he was like the main force behind the company because he was the one that, you know, talked to the doctors on the phone and talked to the hospitals on the phone, and I was all behind the scenes. I did everything on the computer. I was the one who like researched, found physicians, found job openings, helped Ken get contracts with hospitals. But we were really lucky to start our own business, and I remember we had to buy our own health insurance, and it was like, back in 2000, here's a good one for you. Back in 2007, our health insurance was only $350 a month. And thanks to all the changes with healthcare and so forth, I'm not gonna get political, but thanks to all the changes, our healthcare is now like 4 times that much. So that's the hardest part of being self-employed, is paying for your own health insurance. And then our deductible is like $20,000. So it really serves no purpose anyways, but legally you have to, I shouldn't even say legally, according to the government and the IRS, you have to have health insurance. So yeah, we have to pay this enormous amount for healthcare that really serves no purpose, but these are the times that we live in right now. But yeah, we worked together in the physician recruiting business for many, many years. And then when I started YouTube, we started daily vlogging in 2014. And I would say in 2015, somewhere in that first year of daily vlogging, then I was like, I quit. I'm not working for you anymore. And I like the fact that even though we've been successful on YouTube, that he's continued with his business. He can make his own hours. He can work hard when he needs to, take breaks when he needs to, be kind of around and be involved with the kids as much as he needs to be, and it really offers us a lot of flexibility when it comes to just anything, being there for the kids stuff and then travel or any of that. So there's definitely pros and cons that come with being self-employed, like having to buy your own health insurance that costs a crazy amount, but being able to make your own schedule. I feel like though when you're self-employed, because I did this even when I worked for him, I would work at like crazy hours in the night. So I swear I probably worked more than 8 hours a day sometimes, because I would work and then do laundry, work and then cook dinner, work and then watch my favorite TV show, and then work, and before you knew it, it was like 1 in the morning, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've worked the whole day. But yeah, no complaints. I mean, I think we have a pretty cool story. And of course, there's probably more details that I could get into when talking about us starting our own business and how we did it, and sacrifices we had to make, good times that we went through, bad times that we went through. That pretty much wraps up the story of my career and what got me here today. I think like I skipped the whole like how I started YouTube or why I started YouTube, but I actually have already made a video about that here on my channel, so I will link that down below as well if you guys want to check that out. And if you have any further questions for me, obviously I love to talk, so feel free to ask me the question. If you have a good question, I'll talk about it in a future video. So thanks guys for watching, and be sure to subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it, and I will see you next time. Make it a great day.